Alright, I'm gonna cut to the chase. This is gonna be raw, this is gonna be real. It's not some bullshit fluff piece on YouTube, no like fucking clickbait shit, no. This is going to be real. If you are a man especially, and you're someone who grew up in a very traumatic environment, especially as a child, and you have mother wounds or you were abused or whatever it is, I've noticed if you're on this path of like healing, becoming whole. Rather, you are always whole, but actually feeling in yourself, in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, in every aspect of your life, you feel whole, not broken into a bunch of pieces like we tend to feel when we've had an abusive childhood. We fragment. We become fragmented. Our identities become fragmented, and very often we actually don't even really know who we really are because we've had to put on this facade, this ego, this identity in order to please our parent or in order to survive um, that life or death situation as a child. Because to a child, to a baby, and there are a lot of sadly really fucked up experiments that have come out of this, psychology experiments where when a baby is separated from a mother and how that affects the baby and its attachment style, and when a mother doesn't mirror back the emotions of the baby. Basically, there's a lot of science and psychology backing up that affection and love are essential to humans and even other mammals like monkeys. I'm not saying we're monkeys, but like if even monkeys suffer from not having the attachment and love and care of their mother, humans are not exempt from that. So our identities tend to fragment, and it's like we're growing up differently than a lot of the world who have a more normal, let's say, home life, because nobody has a perfect home life. It's in degrees, and I'm not trying to play the oppression Olympics or I had it worse or anything like that, but rather there are degrees to this thing, right? And usually in these more extreme degrees, I notice, at least for myself in my life, my development was different than a lot of other people's. And I noticed that also in other family members and people who have followed a similar path of like self-discovery and healing and learning these different socializations and different aspects of life that might be obvious to someone who grew up in a more normal, healthy environment. My point is with this video, as I've been on this path, I've actually been doing really well. And I'm going to say it outright, like, it's likely if you've gone through a childhood that is traumatic, that was abusive, and you went through neglect, abuse, and all this stuff, that you suffer from complex PTSD. And I know trauma and all these words were like big buzzwords for a while. I don't know if they still are, because I kind of exited away from like the matrix, from social media and stuff like that, because that actually became a part of this journey. What I want to say is that without like really categorizing and holding on to identities, because it's something I also notice people that have grown up with these traumatic childhoods, that we will cling to identities like, I have depression, or I am a depressed person, or I have anxiety, or whatever, like, anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, mood disorders, personality disorders, because it helps us categorize ourselves, but also gives us a sort of like safety that we know what the bounds of who we are within this box. But it's actually not very healthy. It's good to know what direction to go into, but it's not good because you are not that identity. You are not that label. You are not that label. You are beyond the confines of these labels, beyond the confines of ADHD or autism or depression or anxiety. These are simply, for the most part, things that have manifested because of the environment, and also of course of like genetic, ancestral, generational trauma, and certain genes being turned on from your mother, and then her hormones fluctuating while you were in her womb, and all this different, like, all these complicated things. But the important thing is that right now your genes, your personality, all of these things have been impacted by these traumas, but they are not you, and they can be undone for the most part. Not like where you're healed and everything goes away and you're in Zen mode all the time, but rather it becomes a lot easier to live with these things And at some point, I believe it really just becomes irrelevant because I've experienced those periods where it's like doesn't matter. It's not really real. What matters is the presence. So I know it's possible. It's just like I'm not always tapped into that. I do know people that tap into that a little bit more, a little bit easier, and it's a practice, like anything. So back to the point of this. These past 3 years or so, I've come to a point where I thought that I had overcome complex PTSD, cptsd, to a significant degree where I no longer identified with that. And I don't identify with it now, right now, but that I wouldn't, it was kind of silly and hubris and prideful of me. Not prideful, but like almost like I was above it and thought that I wouldn't go through like those types of like thoughts and feelings again, because I was like, I don't feel anxious. I mean, I feel anxious towards normal things, but not the anxiety that people with complex PTSD experience. Was just like, for me, it's been an absolute terror to be in my body, where my breathing is dysregulated, my nervous system is dysregulated, my energy levels get shot, I become overwhelmed a lot easier, etc., etc. It's almost like everything I'm scanning for threat at all times, and it's a fucking horrible feeling. And it's a terrible mode to be in. Now, I thought I had overcome that. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I've been on the spiritual path. I've been doing a lot of practices, and I've reprogrammed a lot of the wiring, the subconscious mind. I've done all these different modalities and been pretty consistent about it, and have seen the results of it. And I've worked like with energy, like chakras, and some ancestral healing, and like different modalities that have helped me feel whole, and at all times feel worthy, and at all times feel like I belong in this world, even when going through difficulty, because those don't go away. Challenges are always going to come, and bad things are going to happen, but the way I can handle them and the trust that I have in myself is unparalleled to how I used to feel the entirety of the past of my life. So I was silly and thought that complex PTSD was done. It would not affect me again because, number one, this cptsd is a lack of trust in self and trust in the world. So it's twofold. It's kind of like I believe it's called the anxious avoidant attachment style, mixed attachment style, where the attachment style is like you want love, but you're scared of love, so you push people away. So you're like, you want it, and then it's similar to that. It's comparable to that, but rather now it's like with the world, with not just attachment. Well, I suppose it's attachment to yourself and others, and the world, but in this case, it is a lack of trust. So a foundational thing for anybody with CPTSD is developing trust in yourself. Because when you develop trust in yourself, you're able to trust the world. Because the world is a reflection of your inner world. Like, it really, really is. And I know it could sound dismissive, but trust me, as someone who has gone through this process, it really does fall into you and me. It really is our responsibility to do what we can. We can't change the past. We can't really, you could change some things in the present, but what we can do is work on ourselves and our inner world, our inner self, our inner image, our self-image. So when we develop the trust in ourselves, think about it. The world could be chaotic, and it will be a lot of the time. But because we trust ourselves to navigate that chaos, to be like, no matter what happens, I will be okay. I will be safe. I will do what's in my best interest. That path forward will take you to where you need to be, even if it's scary, because I feel anxious, I feel this anxiety in my body, but I trust myself still to get through with it. You see that like change, rather than like, I'm anxious, I don't trust anything, I'm scared, I can't do this, etc. The thing is, recently, about a month ago, I was in a pretty bad car accident. And I didn't really think much of it because I scarily reacted really well. Like, I didn't really panic. I didn't have an anxiety attack. Of course, I was like shaken up. Like, I could have very much died. Like, in all of permutations of different universes, that's one of the ones I survived and didn't get hurt. at least severely. Because in so many ways I could just think like hundreds of ways. It could have been fatal, or I could have ended up in a hospital, or severely injured, disabled, whatever. Yeah, in this one, I was completely safe. So I was filled with gratitude, naturally. Like I survived something that could have gone way, way bad. And I'm like, huh, I react to this very well. So I did. Internally, I felt okay. But things started taking a turn in other aspects of my life. And I'm not completely sure if this is what triggered my dysregulation, my nervous system dysregulation, but it's kind of like I would imagine something major that happened that didn't help what stress I was putting myself under, what I didn't realize within myself that I was doing to myself. And then it just kind of like, it was like a dam and it flooded open. And in the incoming weeks after that, I noticed myself getting more dysregulated, more anxious, more worried about money, about things that I usually don't worry about money, about the future, about people. Like I started feeling like almost like paranoid, and started distrusting myself and others, and my sleep became disrupted. So when my sleep was disrupted is when I noticed I was even less capable of regulating my emotions, of regulating myself. And I noticed signs of burnout because my pace of work is actually, that I've been doing the past few months, has been kind of insane now that I think about it in retrospect, which is good and bad. Like I've been working, working, and in terms of like gym, my job, my career, working on this YouTube, working on other things, and it's been this constant thing down playing. So I've been doing this for months. Some breaks here and there, but overall I've been like sacrificing certain things in order to fulfill these productivity goals and feel fulfilled and all that. Overall I felt good about it, but I didn't pay attention to the signs that I was reaching this point of it being unhealthy. So as I noticed myself becoming dysregulated, I was still pushing through because I was like, I don't want to be a pussy. I don't want to give excuses like, this is just me self-sabotaging. This is me just making excuses, whatever. And at some point, like there's certain things I was like, I knew it was self-sabotage. But at the same time, I was ignoring the real signs of like, hey, your body is trying to tell you something. You're not sleeping. You're worrying about everything, things you don't usually worry about. You're a bit paranoid about people. You're not trusting them the same way you do. You're a little snappy, etc. So I hit a wall. I hit a wall so hard because I was just pushing through. I was like, I'm going to get over this. I'm okay. I'm going to keep pushing, keep pushing. It'll go away if I just keep going. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for months. I can continue as usual. The thing is, my body felt the impact, and maybe other parts of myself that I'm just not aware of felt the impact of that terrible accident. And it just, in many ways, my body just went out of whack, out of balance, and I wasn't taking care of it. I wasn't taking a step back, and I was just putting more and more things and doubting myself and failing in other areas of my life. And I began ignoring certain people and pushing things aside, and I just felt so overwhelmed. And usually with things that I don't normally feel that overwhelmed with, that I'm able to handle, I couldn't handle anything. I felt like I was dragging. I was just dragging across everything. And I felt so bad about it. I felt guilty and ashamed because I was like, how am I going to be an example for people if I can't even do these simple things? And I started feeling the symptoms of complex PTSD kicked in, that fight or flight. And I didn't realize till recently I was in fight or flight for a lot of that time, and I just couldn't recognize it because it was something that I had dealt with before. It was familiar, yet it had been so long that I was like, what the fuck, you know? Like, what the hell is going on? Until I hit that wall. I hit that wall and I burnt out. I haven't burnt out this long. I don't think I've ever burnt out like that, to that extent where I was like good and then I could not. Basically, I couldn't function anymore. I just, for the basic things, overall I handled it well, but it really was like, yo, no, I can't do this shit. And most of my habits, my good habits, I let slip through the cracks. Bad habits kind of came back in some ways, not too bad actually, but in some aspects I wasn't taking care of myself the way I should have, and I was in this constant state of vigilance and near panic. And a part of me is embarrassed to say this, especially so publicly, because looking at me, you probably wouldn't know that. But it's the truth of this reality. Like, I regressed. I went back to a state that I hadn't felt in a long time, and I had to really sit down and pay attention to those things and come back and regulate. So I've been doing that. I've been seeing a naturopath for the past almost a year, and she's helped me a lot, honestly, a lot in the physical and emotional realms. And I even stopped my appointments with her because I was so worried about money. It's not a cheap thing to go to a naturopath and have to pay everything out of pocket. But I even stopped that, and that's a mistake, because that would have helped me come back into balance. So I had my appointment with her, and she could tell based off the body scan, or whatever scan it's called. She knew. I didn't even have to tell her. She's like, "You haven't been sleeping well. You've been worrying about everything. What is going on? What's happening with my friend?" And I'm like, "How the fuck did you know?" It doesn't lie. It really, energy, physical, whatever that measures, frequency, it doesn't lie. So we got back into a protocol for myself that would help, my adrenal system, because I had adrenal fatigue, because clearly I hit a wall. Like, I was going, and then boom, done. My body couldn't handle that anymore, and I was just piling more shit. Thinking back, man, I thought I was Superman, and I it was hubris. I got too close to the sun. I forgot that I'm someone who has a history of a shot nervous system. And one day, I know, because I'll change that story again. But right now, I gotta pay attention, and there's no shame in it. There's no shame being like, hey, another squirrel's coming. There's no shame in this experience, because I'm learning from it, and hopefully others can learn from it. And you know what? Even though for me right now, it's hard for me to accept that, like, this is what happened, because I felt so proud of myself. I felt so happy. I was like, I'm an example for everyone. Like, if I could do it, if anyone could do it, etc. It really inflated my ego in some ways. And now, like, it humbled me. I'm like, no, like, I went through my struggles. I've experienced complex PTSD symptoms, and they're still latent. It took a trigger, obviously, like nearly dying, but it's still there, and I'm overcoming it, and I'm coming back into that balance. And thankfully, during this time, I had a lot of friends that helped me out. Um, I'm very grateful for that, and if you're watching this, thank you, because the conversations we've had, the support I've had. Normally, when I'll retract, contract. I'll retract, contract. Actually, I did. That's another thing about cptsd. I contracted. I am the fight or flight. I mean, we do both, but in this instance, I was flying. I was out of there. I just came into my circle. I really feel like I disappointed a lot of people. Actually, I was a selfish asshole for a little bit with my family members, because they've been going through a hard time, and I was so worried about stupid shit that doesn't actually matter. Though I understand why and I have compassion for that, I still own up to that. I still apologize, because they have feelings too, because they're going through things too. And through me apologizing and being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm sorry, I care about you and I love you and I want to be there for you, I don't lose anything. And it's honest, it's real. And I'd rather sacrifice that pride and the comfort of not apologizing or not stepping into vulnerability. I'd rather have that relationship and let them know what I really feel. Because I was holding on to this guilt of how much I had failed the people that I loved. And guilt is a very low vibration emotion. So that's what I did. I've apologized and I feel a lot lighter. And I've also come back into alignment towards myself. So right now, the protocol that I've been noticing in myself And I've gotten inspiration from friends that I've asked them, like, hey, like, who have similar constitutions to me, like, hey, what do you do with this, or how did you recover from this, etc. And then my own experiences, I've integrated that. So I'm slowly coming back, and I'm taking a much more relaxed approach towards my work. Same with YouTube. I'm not forcing it anymore. I have faith and confidence that as I work through things and align myself to my desires, my needs, or my wants, or whatever, align myself to my higher self, that it will be okay. Like, I have a brilliant mind, and I'm not saying that in like a egotistical way, because we all have brilliant minds in different configurations, that I'll be able to get myself out of any situation except for death, and maybe even then, like, I'm gonna find my way out, probably. I don't know. Oh man, we'll see. So right now, the protocol, actually, I might make a separate video if you're interested. The protocol I've been working on, and I got a protocol, even though it's not as militant as that, is a more relaxed approach, and being honest with people, being direct, telling them, hey, like, this is going on, and not feeling ashamed for it, even if it's scary, even if it seems like pussy. I don't care. Like, my priority is my nervous system. If my nervous system is shot, then I can't do anything. I can't function. I'm not useful to anybody. So I'd rather prioritize that and be honest and present and loving as much as I can be while I do that. I will be adding in more time with my family, because I've neglected my relationships, and I've not been good actually in my life, ever in my life, to be vulnerable and emotionally available in the way that I want to be, that I picture myself as being, that I know I have within. As having two parents that are extremely emotionally unavailable, I've repeated the same cycle towards the people that I love, and I'm not going to do it again. And I might do it again, but I'm going to learn through those experiences. I'm going to do my best to be more present and loving. Secondly, more outside time, more volunteer work, more doing things for the community, because when we're in cptsd mode, when we're in this survival mode, I know the thing is to focus on yourself. Yes, I agree with that, but the best times I've had with myself in this world in general is when I've been outside of my mind and not thinking of all the problems and how to fix them. It's being in presence. It's just flow state. It's tapping into that flow state. That's the happiest we are as humans. I think there's a study. I'm not going to cite it because I don't remember it, but there's a study that when we're in flow state is when we are most content. So it's the same. Flow state is being in presence. You're not thinking a bunch of thoughts. You're not overthinking. You are in flow. So it might be different for you. For me, when I'm doing things with my hands, when I'm like doing physical labor, almost like, let's say, like volunteering for conservation, right? Like planting trees or some shit, I'm in flow. Or when I'm playing sports, I'm in flow. When I'm playing certain instruments, I'm in flow. So doing more of that, doing more of what's in flow, doing more for others as well, doing more for others, because that takes us out of ourselves. But it gives us those good brain chemicals, right? Neurotransmitters. It gives us that good feeling. And then they have a good feeling, and it creates this community, this bond, and it takes you out of yourself and into community. Also, being in a state of gratitude. When we're in gratitude and grateful, it's very difficult to be negative about anything when we're in that, like, gratitude. Thankful for the grass that I'm sitting on, thankful for this park that is available to me, thankful for this camera, this internet that I'm able to upload and connect to all of you, grateful for everything. So these are like certain things I'm integrating more and more. I'll be making a separate video, if you're interested, comment below, about really the exact process I'm going through as I go through it, and how I feel. Because right now I'm feeling a little better, but I'm not getting cocky, because I thought of that last week and I was so wrong. So I'm not gonna get cocky, and I'm gonna be okay with whatever process I'm in. If you have cptsd, or if you're someone who has relapse, or I don't know what you would call this, to be honest, I'm just talking from experience, maybe it's an actual thing, it's okay, and it'll be okay, and it's one step at a time. And wherever you are, just letting go of the expectation and accepting it, even if it's difficult, is a lot easier than just fighting it off and just berating ourselves for whatever it is. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. I hope this has helped you out. Please subscribe if you found this helpful, and let me know if you want more videos like this or what has helped you if you're going through a similar process. I'll catch you in the next video.